hearing from Alexis Sapkin on filling the gap between top managers and software developers. And now I'll hand over to the presenter. Thank you.
Can you switch to the first slide, or we start with questions and answers?
Yeah, sorry.
Good idea to start with questions and answers, anyway.
But we'll do it proper one. There you go.
Okay, so use this one.
Yeah, you can use that to switch back and forth.
Okay. We're going to talk about this gap. And, well, I came from Barcelona, from Spain, and we have there Agile as well, and everything is the same there. So the first question I want you to ask, it is a kind of rhetorical question. Do you think that in the most cases, software testers actually help to build a better software, or they actually help to break the software? And unfortunately, in the most cases, software testers are trying to break the software. Not just because they are bad guys or something like that, but it's because of top managers fail to translate their ideas, the excellent ideas, to these lower levels, to the levels of developers, to the levels of testers. And there is a solution to this problem. It's games under different names, under business scorecard, under strategy alignment, strategy execution, and we're going to talk about this. I'll show you one case, and we'll try to make some conclusions from this. And in the end, I will give you some best practices that you can probably use in your own project. So the case is about a financial institution which wanted to develop a kind of application for smartphone. And they were business people, and they started as normally business people start. So they defined some goals, which was increase customer engagement, improve customer retention rate, and cut some operational costs. And as many business people, they want to make their efforts trackable. And they also introduced some metrics, which were the cost of quality, stability index, and defect detection efficiency, and some other. And let's see what's the problem with this. And after short analysis, you can see that actually there is no alignment here. For example, we have a business goal, improve customer retention. No, it's not that bright. So improve customer retention rate. And there is actually no indicator, no metrics that people wanted to use to track this goal. So there is a goal, but no way to track it. On the other hand, we have another metric, defect detection efficiency, but we have no idea why we want to do this. We have no business goal aligned with this metric. If we'll have a look at other goals, like, for example, increase customer engagement, and it is aligned with some indicator. It is aligned with a stability index. I have no idea how they were meant to calculate the stability index, but the thing is that probably the stability of application is not the only parameter for retention rate, for engagement. And, well, they needed to think more about this. And another problem, big problem, I think, if we look at those indicators, stability index, cost of quality, defect detection rate, those actually are logging indicators. So they tell us something that has already happened, and don't give us a clue about what we can do to improve. So, after a short analysis, this financial organization decided to update this a little bit, and I think they did a great job. What they decided to do? First, they understood that actually their goal to improve customer retention rate is a part of a bigger goal, increase customer engagement. So if your customers are engaged, then they will probably use this application more. They will probably use the services of this organization more. So that's a great idea. And they also decided to choose more metrics to measure, and they actually grouped them into the two groups. One, let's call it customer engagement index, which consisted of several different metrics. One of them was a number of logins per month via this application for a smartphone compared to the number of logins via a website. And another group of indicators was, let's call it customer usability index. It consisted of several metrics that help to understand if this application is actually useful. So, for example, they had in mind some functions, and they measured the number of clicks or taps people needed to do to execute certain actions. So they were doing this seriously, so they had a set of certain actions and some metrics for this. And what actually had happened is that now they were seeing both sides of the process. So we're looking at some leading metrics, like, for example, if in that application there were enough functions so that people don't need to go to the website, people don't need to go to the physical office, and in that application there were enough functions to do whatever customer need. Or, for example, if that application was easy enough to install and configure. So let's say it was a kind of leading part that was predicting success in some way. And for sure they had this logging part. So if people actually switched to this application, if people wanted to use this application, and they were able to track this. So this is a short case study about this application, and now let's make some conclusions from this, because this is just 2 slides, and there are a lot of ideas hiding behind these 2 slides. So the first idea, this is really painful for many managers, because managers like metrics, like KPIs, like indicators, and they come and they ask, okay, give us indicator for this, give us indicator for that. And this is a bad approach. If you want to do better, you need to first start with your business goals. You need to first understand your business context, and only then you need to come up with some metrics, and actually it won't be so hard to come up with good metrics. So the first best practice I do recommend for you. Another thing, when you have a business goal and you have some indicators in mind, make sure that you have at least one leading indicator and one logging indicator. So to keep it simple, leading indicators explain us how to play the game, and logging indicators explain us how to calculate the score of the game. So we need both of them to be successful. Another thing that often happens, people want to use surveys because it looks like it's a rational thing. So they ask their customers, ask their developers, ask everyone. And the problem with surveys is they are really subjective, and they're a little bit lagging in time. And in that case, this organization actually decided not to use surveys, but to use something that they could easily measure. And in that case, it was the number of logins per month via this application compared to the number of logins via website. And probably it was not so interesting for companies that do surveys, but it was a tangible metric, and it was easy to calculate, and actually they were getting results in real time. It was a great benefit. One thing that I'm putting it under the best practice tab, but probably it's not. Companies like to aggregate some data into indexes. And if you will look at the left side, you see some metrics. And you read these metrics and you understand what they mean. You can get some conclusions. You can do whatever you want. But if you look on the right side, when you have just usability index, you have one number, managers like one number, but it's actually not helping you a lot. So be careful if you are going to use indexes. Make sure that you are able to go back and to see what stands behind this index. Now, I think it's a key topic on the conference today. It's about how the ideas of customer value, ideas of top managers are actually translated to the developers and to the testers. And a lot of talks were about how to do this from developer to tester, from project manager to developer. And I'm answering the question about how to translate it from top managers, from our, let's say, organizational level to the level of business unit, research and development, particular developers and testers. Do not do this by metrics. If you want to do this kind of cascading or alignment, as we call it, do it by business goals. So don't ask your developers to, let's say, increase in some way the number of logins via application. Instead, translate them your business goal explain them how they need to create application, discuss it with them, get a list of some specific goals, and only then ask them to think about some indicators. So first business goals, only then you have indicators. Now, imagine that you have some business goals, you have some indicators, you have leading and lagging metrics aligned with them. And if you do just this, you did just some nice measurement exercise, because you have some numbers, but you didn't actually do anything. So one of the critical parts is to align these business goals and indicators with some action plan. So let's say if we cascaded some goal from top managers, we cascaded it down to the developers, and developers see that they need to develop some stable application that will be easy to configure and to set up, then what they actually need to do. So you don't just cascade them this one goal that it's not really understandable. You're trying to discuss with them how, guys, you're going to release this. And probably they need to do some critical factors analysis or find some development bottlenecks to make sure that new updates are coming faster and so on. So action planning is must in this case. And few ideas about how you can improve the metrics, the scorecards that you already have in your business, because I assume many of you have such scorecards. Try to think in the context of their business. Always try to think in the context of their business. So, for example, if you're measuring the number of defects, probably it's better to measure the number of defects according to their importance. So, if there is some minor bug and you count it as just as a bug, probably it's not the best idea. Probably you need to count some critical errors on some different scale. Or, for example, I know that many companies like to measure the number of defects found. Now, actually, in this form, this metric, this indicator, does not give us a lot of information. And probably, if we're talking about business context, probably we need to measure the number of returning problems. So in this way, we'll get more information about how quality assurance is working, about how if our developers and testers are actually learning from their mistakes. Or another example, defect detection efficiency. Probably there is some sense to measure it, but I don't see it so clearly. So probably instead, or in addition, you need to measure the time that you need to introduce some new change. So you need to understand how fast your team can be developing what is required. And, well, there is a common saying, what gets measured gets managed. People from my industry, consultants that do consulting in this field, hate this saying because it's actually say that don't care about business context, just come up with measures. So you need to think a lot about business context, and measures are important, but are way less important than measures. Another best practice. It's a screenshot from one article, it's a long article about the alignment between rewards, bonuses and so on with metrics and different KPIs. And a short conclusion from this article is that do not do this. So if you have some indicators, probably have the best indicators in the world, and you want to align them with some bonuses, some cash rewards, don't do this. You will find out how easily it's to track to game any indicator, and it doesn't work. So, something that I want you to remember after this short track, because when we make presentations, we have a lot of ideas and we share a lot of ideas, but I think when you come home and come to your office, you need to have just some 3 or 4 ideas that you will remember, and these are these ideas. So when we're talking about business alignment, when we're talking about a connection between different levels of organizations and connection between business goals and indicators, I think that 80% the importance is divided in this way. So 80% is business goals, it's just 20% is indicators. So business goals are more important, and you always need to start with business goals. When you come up with indicators in the end, make sure that you have at least one leading and one lagging indicator aligned with your business goals, with your business context. So leading indicator explain us how to play the game, logging indicators explain us how to calculate the score. Obviously, we need both of them to make sure that we're on the right track. Finally, when you have business goals, when you have indicators leading and logging, nothing will change if you don't introduce an action plan. So action plan is the third component, which is equally important as other components. And we are talking right now about just one level. And when you work in a real environment, you need to cascade all your ideas. You need to explain all your ideas from the viewpoint of customer value, from the viewpoint of financial performance. You need to explain them to the lower levels, and you actually need to hear the ideas from lower levels. So when you do this, don't base this alignment on metrics. Instead, base this alignment on your business goals. So this is the best approach that I do recommend. And you have some handout materials. We have just 20 minutes for the short track, and in handout materials you have an example of strategy map that was actually created for this project, and you can research it. And if you have any questions, you can email me or connect with me on LinkedIn. And I think now we have a few minutes for questions.
We've got 5 minutes for questions. If anyone has any questions? I have one to start off.
Sure.
Do you have a basic set of business goals or of metrics that apply to all projects, or is it really individual for each company that you work with?
Yes, it's individual, and actually a lot of people come and ask, okay, I'm working in, let's say, HR, or I'm working in sales in the oil industry, and could you please give me some indicators? And for me, this question actually indicates that I need to give this short lecture about, guys, you probably need to start with your strategy. You probably need to start with your business goals. And when I'm starting asking these questions, people actually start thinking about, okay, strategy, and yes, we need to understand this. And they're starting analyzing their business goals, how they're connected, and then they have no questions about indicators. So. And unfortunately, common strategies, they doesn't exist. So it's always tailor-made. There are certain approaches that help, but the general ideas always come from experience of the company, experience of the team. I know I tend to hypnotize our auditory, so don't worry.
Any other questions?
When you have a business goal, you said you cascade the business goals down into every department. So do the developers actually work for the business goal, or do they work for the indicator the research and development team thinks about?
Now, the best practice is that they work for a business goal, because you can use the indicators to track their job, but it's not a good idea to mandate some KPIs. It's not a good idea to ask them to report according to KPIs. It's not a good idea to, they're human beings, and the best idea to motivate human beings is to give a great goal, a great objective, and KPIs, yes, they're helpful to track, to make sure that you're on the right track, but don't overuse it.
Any other questions?
So would you advise against the DevOps way to gather all data, put it up on the screens, and then think about what it does?
You mean data key indicators?
Well, one thing about the monitoring in DevOps is that you monitor everything and just push it up there, and hopefully somebody will see if something goes wrong.
On the earlier stage, it's a good idea because, you don't have insights, and you're looking for different ways to get insights about what your business goals are and so on. So on earlier stage, yeah, you can log in, to Google Analytics and just start browsing, finding some data. And but on the other hand, think about that you're spending a lot of resources on getting this data. So if it's cheap for you to get this data on a dashboard, probably you can do this. But the best approach is when you think, okay, I'm thinking now about the ways to decrease customer response time. So let's see what indicators possibly we can use for this. And then, it's about narrowing your sight on something that is important. You can start with everything, but you're at risk to lose the focus from what actually is needed. You have some nice dashboards. We like nice dashboards, but it might not work for a strategy. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your attention.